Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Hook. Today we're going to be making smoked baby back ribs on the big green egg. Today I'm going to use a no foil method, so I'm going to cook at around 225 to 250 degrees, and it should take about 5 hours to complete. And I'm not planning on using any spritzers or any foiling method. Obviously, if you look around the internet, there's probably about 6 billion different ways to smoke baby back ribs, and everybody swears that their way is the best. So today I'll be presenting a way to cook baby back ribs, and that's no foil, no spritz, and really no fuss. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
All right, so the first step that I'm going to do is going to go ahead and light my big green egg. Obviously, I don't want to be waiting for this to come up to temperature once I have the meat prepped. As you can see, I have my charcoal basket filled, and I have about 4 big pieces of apple chunks because I want to have a good, nice smoke flavor. Usually when I only use 2 or 3, I don't really get a whole lot of smoke, so I'm going to go ahead and just use 4 for this cook and adjust from there on future cooks. So I'm going to go ahead and light kind of one big spot in the center. If this was going to be a higher, like a grilling cook of 350, 400, or a pizza cook, I'd light probably 3 to 4 spots. But I really don't want to overshoot 225 to 250, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of light one big piece here in the center. I'm going to hold this torch here for about 2 to 3 minutes and let it heat up from there. So I'll be right back. All right, so I've been holding this here for about 2 to 3 minutes, probably closer to 3. I'll go ahead and shut my torch off, kind of let it build up a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and close the dome with my stack in there to get up to that 225 to 250 degrees. All right, so the charcoal's been going for about 10-ish minutes. Looks like it's off to a good start, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to go ahead and kind of close off the vents a little bit. And I'm just going to go right about there because I don't want it to overshoot that 225 to 250 mark, all right? So the hotter you have this charcoal to begin with before you close the vents, obviously the quicker that temperature is going to rise. So I want to make sure that I catch it before it goes past 225. All right, welcome back. You see I got the ribs pretty much ready for the binder and the rub, and I have my indirect stacked basically ready here. I just need to put my drip pan on top of my half moons, and I use an 18-inch wide piece of aluminum foil, basically double layered, to make sure I don't have any creases in the over the drip pan, because the grease will get through them and onto your drip pan. And if you're a clean freak like I am, then you'll have to clean it later, which is kind of a pain. All right, as far as prepping the meat, so after you take them out of the bag, a lot of people say to do this. I do it. I take the thin membrane film off the back side, off of the bone side. And really the easiest way to do that is just start on one side, or kind of use a little knife to kind of lift it up on the on one of the side pieces there, and basically just kind of peel it back like you can see in this picture. And like I said, some people just leave it on there. I've never left it on there, so feel free to give it a try. I'm sure it's probably not going to make that big of a difference. I've always taken it off, and it's really not that hard, especially if you've done it a few times. Okay, so I'm going to use yellow mustard as a binder, and have some Killer Hogs, the barbecue rub, left over. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the binder, and I'll be right back. All right, so I applied a thin layer of yellow mustard on the front and the back sides of these racks of ribs. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the rub pretty generously now. And again, on the front and the back side, a pretty generous layer. All right, once I'm done with that, I'll be right back, and we'll be ready to put the meat on. Alrighty, so I went ahead and put a good generous layer of rub across all of these ribs. And generally I put that stack in there, kind of let it come up to temp along with the grill. However, kind of ran out of time, so I'm just going to go ahead and put these right on top of my grill grate. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lift this whole assembly up into my grill. All right, so now that I have everything sitting up in my egg, try to make sure it's all over the drip pan as much as I can. And now I'm just going to shut it. I'm going to let the temp come back up to 225, because obviously putting all that stuff in the racks in the half moon, it's going to drop the temperature as well as the meat. So making sure that you come back and you check that it's holding 225, or make sure you adjust the intake to achieve that 225 to 250. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the lid here, and we'll be back here in about an hour to see how everything's looking. All right, welcome back. It's been about 25 minutes, and like we talked about, the temperature was gonna go down a little bit. So I opened it up about this far. In about 20-ish minutes, it's around 225, 230 right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it off, starting with there. And right there to try to catch that 225 to 250 degrees. We're at about 240 right now. All right, so we'll be back in about a half hour to an hour, and we'll take a first look at it. Be back then. All right, welcome back. Taking a look at the ribs. It's been about an hour and a half. Everything's looking good. Starting to get a nice little bark going. Things are looking good. All right, we'll take another look in about an hour. See you then. All right, so it's been about 2.5 hours. Looking good. I think everything is on track, so we'll probably just be back here in an hour, and then we'll do our first bend test to see how everything's coming. All right, see you back in about an hour. All right, welcome back. It's been about a little over 4 hours since we put them on. Everything's coming along pretty nicely. Just going to do a bend check here. Basically, you just want to like lift these up, and if they start to separate, they kind of are a little bit. I'm still going to leave them on a little bit longer. Let's test this one out. It's easier with two hands. So still not quite where I want them. So I'm going to give these at least another half hour, 45 minutes. And I don't really cook ribs to a specific temperature per se, but I always like to kind of get a good idea for how tender they are inside. It's about 170. Probe goes in pretty smoothly, so that's obviously a good sign. But, you know, if you kind of compare that temperature to, you know, like pulled pork, you're looking for that, you know, 203, so 170. I'm going to give these about another 45 minutes. We'll come back out, do another bend check, and check on what the temperature is. All right, we'll be back then. All right, welcome back. We're about hour 5. It's looking really good here. Let's take a temp check. It's very probe tender. Very probe tender. It's going to be really good. All right, let's do another bend test. Starting to pull apart, so it's good. Probably very similar. Starting to pull apart. You can see that starting to pull apart up there. Obviously, you can cook these to different consistencies. I find when you wrap them in aluminum foil, especially if you put a lot of liquid in there, if you leave them foiled too long, like in the 3-2-1 method, you really have to make sure you maintain 225. If you're at 275 and you try to do that after the 2 hours of the foil, it really can turn your ribs into kind of just mushy, especially if you add a lot of liquid. All right, but as you can see, these have been on for about 5 hours, no wrap, roughly 225 to 250 degrees, and turned out really nicely. Didn't spray them, and as you can tell, there's just obviously the meat is still continuing to sweat, and they're definitely going to be really good. I'm going to go ahead and put on some barbecue sauce now. This is just Kinder's Hickory Brown Sugar that I bought for basically a chuck roast last week. I'm going to go ahead and apply this and just kind of use a brush, and I'm going to cook it Basically let it stay on the smoker for about 15 minutes to try to caramelize that barbecue sauce, and be right back. All right, so you can see I applied a pretty generous layer of that barbecue sauce. I'm gonna let this caramelize on here for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then at that point, I'll be ready to take them off, let them rest for, a few minutes, and then slice them up for dinner. We'll be back here in about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, welcome back. It's been about 20 minutes. Alrighty, the barbecue sauce has been on there for about 20 minutes. It's looking really good. Kind of go until it gets tacky. I don't go until it gets completely dried. So I'm going to pull these. The easiest way to cut these, I find, is flipping them over meat side down, bone side up. And then so you can see the bones, and then cut with a sharp knife. Obviously, you can come from the top. You just have to, pay attention to the bones as you're cutting them. I'm going to go ahead and pull these, and I'm going to go ahead and cut them up, and I'll show you what the final product looks like. Again, if you find these videos useful, I really appreciate liking and subscribing to help me grow my barbecue channel content. Thanks.